So I said to myself, I said, do my ragamuffins know how to divide by a fraction? To have a dividend that's a whole number representing a group of things, and to have that be divided by a part of a whole fraction, to give me a quotient that would tell me how many times that fraction, that part of a whole, can fit into the dividend, the whole number. I know, mind blowing. I have to tell you, it is difficult, it is important. So focus up, ragamuffins. Let's go. Cade scored a ridiculous number of KitKat bars after Halloween thanks to his blow up sumo wrestler costume. I'm sure he looked adorable. Each bar had blank fingers, and each finger was then sectioned into blanks. To make the joy last, he forced himself to eat blank of one finger each day, which means he didn't eat an entire finger, part of a whole. If he had blank Kit Kat bars in his candy bin, for how many days could he feast? How many days? What we have here is a certain number of Kit Kat bars. And then we know that each Kit Kat bar was broken up into fingers. And the fingers were then broken into several sections. And he ate a few of those sections every day. In order to figure out how many days he made the candy last, we have to break this apart into several sections. I want to find out each section at a time so that I can be certain that the answer that I get makes sense. This is not about using algorithms or any tricks. It's about taking a look at exactly what the problem tells me and figuring out what each section means. The problem tells us that each bar had 4 fingers, and each of those fingers was sectioned into thirds. So 3 parts. Each finger was broken into 3 equal parts. And how many of those parts did he eat? 2 out of 3, 2/3 of one finger. And since he had 10 Kit Kat bars, whoa, Cade, nice. Since Cade had 10 Kit Kat bars, the question is, how many days could he make those 10 Kit Kat bars last, eating 2/3 of one finger out of 4 fingers each day? Whoa, that's a bunch. Let's take this slowly and start with it section by section. We're going to break this into what we know, what we want to know, and then find out how many fingers, how many thirds, and how many days did this last. What we know is he's got 10 Kit Kat bars, and each bar has 4 fingers. 3/3 for each finger. I can break each finger into 3 equal parts. 2 out of the 3, 2/3, 2 out of the 3 eaten every day. What do we want to know? First question is, how many fingers does he have altogether? And then, how many thirds in all? If we break up each of the fingers into 3 equal parts, the denominator tells us how many parts to break each finger into. And then we need to pay attention to how many of the sections he eats each day. How many thirds? The question we want to know is how many of those unit fractions does he eat each day? And then that'll let us figure out how many days it lasts. Ooh, the numerator right here, 2, tells us that 2 of the unit fractions are eaten each day. How many fingers? Since he said he had 10 candy bars, and each of those candy bars had 4 fingers, 10 groups of 4 is going to give us 40 fingers altogether. How many thirds? 3/3 equals 1 finger. The denominator tells us 3 parts to the whole. And if he's got 40 fingers, which we found out over here, 10 times 4, if we have 40 fingers, we're going to get 3 groups of 40. Holy moly, that is 120 thirds, 120 unit fractions. How many days? Well, he tells us that he eats 2/3 every day, and he has 120 thirds. If I divide the 120 thirds into groups of 2, which tells me how many parts he eats each day, that's going to give me 60 days. How do I know that? Because 12 divided by 2 is 6. Remember, division and multiplication are inverses, they're opposites. I can use what I know about multiplication, that 2 times 6 is 12, to know that 12 divided by 2 equals 6. And of course, 120 is the same as 12 times 10. So I'm just going to multiply my quotient 6 by 10 to get 60 days. There's a faster way to do this. I'm just going to show it to you. I know that we started off with 10 candy bars, each candy bar being broken into 4 fingers. That gave us a total of 40 fingers. The problem that we actually had to figure out was 40 divided into groups of 2/3, because 2/3 is what Cade ate each day, and we had 40 fingers altogether. So it's 40 fingers divided by 2/3 of a finger. And that answer we found out was 60 days. How on earth can I simply use a division situation, a division equation, to work that out? What math tricks or what math strategies? I cannot believe I used the word tricks. What procedures, what mathematical procedures can I use to figure this out? First thing I'm going to do is define my variable d to be the number of days that Cade was able to stretch out all of his KitKat fun. We have 40 as a whole, 40 whole KitKat bars. I'm going to turn that into a fraction by simply listing it as 40 over 1. Instead of dividing by 2/3, what I'm going to do is multiply by its inverse, which is 3 over 2. You may notice that what I have done is simply made the numerator the denominator. I switched their roles by multiplying by the inverse. This is a 5th grade standard, so if it seems like magic, well, maybe it is jumping from 3rd right over 4th to 5th. And I don't expect you to understand this, not solidly, but we spent 3 good steps earlier going through the number sense. And so here's the fast way. I have 40 times 3 over 2. I can cross simplify and look at 40 and 2 and simply say 2 into 2, 1, 2 into 40, 20. And then what I'm going to do is multiply 20 by 3. 20 by 3 is 60. Multiply my denominators, and I have 1. That's going to give me 60 days. So D equals 60 days. I know it seems like magic, but oh my goodness, I could not keep from letting you know that that's the fastest mathematical procedure that we can use to go from a whole number divided by a fraction. I multiply by the inverse. Simplify, and that gives me the total. If you're confused, ignore what I've taught you and go back to the amazing work we did before, going from each of the 3 steps to the final answer of Cade munching out on his KitKat bars for 2 months, 60 days. Brush those teeth, Cade. All right. Hope that helps. Bye. Ahora mismo, necesito que practiques las ideas que acabamos de aprender. Los números son diferentes, pero el problema es el mismo. Al terminar, revisa si tus respuestas fueron correctas. Mucha suerte. All right, so I've been listening to a lot of Bad Bunny, and I realize I should know more Spanish, and the only way that's going to happen is if I practice. And the truth is, you are here to learn math. You showed up to figure out how do you divide by a fraction. And the only way you're going to get better is if you practice as well. So honestly, I hope that your math is better than my Spanish. Good luck. Peace. Same problem, different numbers. Let's zoom in to see what we have. We've got 5 KitKat bars divided into 3 fingers for each bar. The sections are fourths, and Cade eats 3 pieces out of 4 each day. We know that we have 5 bars, 3 fingers per bar divided into fourths, and 3 fourths eaten daily. Good luck.
Yeah, look, all of my friends going crazy. I gotta brag on myself, I amaze me. I know I'm God's son, I can phase me. I'm too dope like I'm back in the 80s. Okay, call me and I'm gon' slide. Pull up with me for a hell of a ride. You need a couple wins, they ain't doing it right. Get up my line, we gon' turn up the night. I got a lot of wins on my dinner plate. Ain't coming down, gotta levitate. I know my next win is the best one, so I tell them that I'm on to the on-20.
On to the next one. On to the next one. On to the next one.
Las ideas ahora mismo necesito que practiques los mucha tiene mucha suerte.